What does podcasting, recruitment, and talent have in common? That is the topic of the hour. Hello, good day, greetings, bonjour, and salams to peeps from all around the world. Welcome to The Live. Now, this particular series is called Impact 2.0, where we feature some kick-ass leaders making a dent in the universe in their own special way. Stick around till the end, and I promise you that you'll walk away with at least one, if not more practical yet scrumptious takeaways from each of these live sessions, like an ice cream sundae topped with heavy whipped cream, melted dark chocolate, and a dash of gold dust. But most importantly, if you turn up live, you'll get a chance to ask guests questions that are bugging you like an itch that can't be scratched. Now, my today's guest believes that it's simple. Do everything with integrity and positive intentions. Do what's best for your clients and candidates, and the rest will fall into place. He's the founder of NHB Talent and host of ThePOZCast podcast. So will you please put your virtual hands together to welcome my fantabulous guest, Adam Posner.
Amber, what's happening? Thank you so much for having me. I am thrilled to be here. I love that intro. I love when podcasters, live streamers, when they really put the effort into the experience. And I think that's really key, and it translates across everything we do in content creation, thinking about the end user and just having it be fun.
Yeah.
Right? Like taking the extra steps to make it look good, to make it sound good, to make it exciting. So kudos to you, and I'm excited to chat today.
Oh, thank you. And it means a lot coming from me because you are so experienced at it. I am just an amateur. I'm just starting off.
I can't hear that anymore. I've been doing this for like 3 years. I'm a newbie. I'm a newbie, but I guess this world moves so fast that I guess considered an old timer at this point.
Yeah, you told him. Yeah. And I mean, I love your show, and I love learning from fellow live streamers, podcasters, and all the things that they're doing. To not only just educate us, but also entertain us. So I love that. So thank you for coming on the show today.
Happy to be here.
Before we get into the scones and jam of this conversation, we are going to start off the show with a quick fire round. Are you ready, Adam?
Let's do it. I'm ready for some scones and jam.
All right. Also, so which store would you max out your credit card if you absolutely had to?
Oh my God, which store would I max out my credit card if I absolutely had to? That's a good one. The Lego store.
The Lego store.
and if you see, I have my Ghostbusters car there, and you can't see it over there. I have a giant here. Look, you can see my giant spaceship is up on my.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah.
So the answer is obvious. Okay, what can you do today that you were not capable of a year ago?
Being able to have my own studio. Have my own podcast headquarters.
Oh, wow.
Which I've been here for about 3 months. Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's so awesome
previously,
to hear.
I was out of a WeWork. I was carrying my studio in a backpack, which I have right there.
All right. And now, so you've moved from WeWork to having your own. Oh, that is so super cool. Yeah. I think at some point I would like to have a proper studio as well.
A lot.
All righty. What is your greatest hope and biggest fear?
My greatest hope is that I can continue to have the success that I've built recently, and my biggest fear is losing it all on things that are out of my control.
Yeah. And I think I'm sure this resonates with a lot of people. And this marks the end of the quick fire round.
There we go.
All righty, Adam. So it's time to dive into the real jam and scones of this conversation.
Let's do it.
Now imagine, Adam, that I'm holding a pair of boxing gloves. Could you take these gloves from me and smash for me, and not my face, please, but some kind of podcasting myth, a bogus strategy, or a misconception, and set the record straight?
I think what people are focusing on too much sometimes is how to grow their audience and thinking about monetizing it. And it's not just about ads. I think that a big thing people need to think about is how to monetize the guest instead of the audience. It's really hard to actually get over a certain amount of subscribers. It took me a long time to break, the 5,000 mark on listeners, which I've done recently. It's hard. There's a very small percentage of shows that do that. So think about how to monetize a guest. Think about your show, how you could invite guests on that you want to do business with. Invite guests that are going to be door openers to other relationships, and start to change the way you think about it. And one thing that I would do differently if I had to start all over again, I would have concentrated on building my community, stronger and better from the beginning.
I love that. I love that. And I'm glad you brought that up about monetizing, because I think it's the same with every business, whether if we're starting off, we've launched a new product or it's a podcast. And the first thing people go into is like, how can I monetize this? How can I, how can I bring money in? And we forget about the value part of it.
Exactly. Totally.
And just deep straight into, talking about money, which of course is the end goal. But sometimes, and I mean, with podcasting, I see podcasting as it's the same as when you've authored a book, right? When you've authored a book, it's not about the money you're going to earn is not from the sales of the book, right? It's not about, you can give the book away for free. It does not.
It's a press around. It's the excitement. It's what else? All those halo effects that we talk about.
Exactly. It's what will come from it, the credibility, the connections, the relationships, the referrals, and it's the same. I see podcasts as the same channel. It's that credibility channel, which will bring a lot more, not just business, but relationships and so much 100%. More in return.
100%. I mean, I talk about it all the time. The podcast fuels the business fuels the podcast. It's one continuous loop of synergy that fuels each other.
So, I mean, how did you fall into it? I mean, this is how you started your business, or
no.
you realized you got to have this? Like, what was the reason?
No. I had the business. So I've been in recruiting for about 6 years. I've had my own company for about 3.5 years, and the podcast has been around for a little over 2 years. Just to give everyone a kind of a timeline there. So the business was up and running before the podcast, and the podcast came on a bit of a, not so much a whim, but for the fact that we're talking, early 2019, and I saw a lot of other podcasters out there, and I thought some of them were good, some of them were not so good. And I've always had an itch, Amber, to be a broadcaster, to have a show. And I said, you know what? I have such an incredible network of people in my life, professionally, personally, that why don't I tap into them and give this thing a shot? I had an itch I needed to scratch, and the birth of the ThePOZCast happened.
Yeah. All right. It says, okay, so it was something you knew you wanted to do.
Yes. Short answer is yes. And I just took the step to do it. And my first ever show was literally, I recorded it via Zoom, and there wasn't a lot of preparation. And I did it as the concept was, Amber, I wanted to show people what real networking looks like, what a real networking conversation looks like. So I reached out to somebody in my network, a gentleman by the name of Q, Quentin Alums. I don't know if you've seen him on the platform. He has this big hat that he used to wear. He doesn't wear it so much anymore. And I said, hey, buddy, like, here's my idea. Let's just get on the phone on the Zoom and record it and show people how to do that. And that's what the episode was, the first episode. But Amber, what's kind of cool, and I've gone back and watched it a number of times. I literally predicted on the show, on episode 1, what the future of the show was going to look like. And I actioned against it.
Oh, wow.
I said, this is what the show is going to be. Here's how I'm going to do it. Here are the type of guests that I'm going to have. And looking back on it, like, it's kind of my my checklist that I did it.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome. And it makes sense with what you're doing. You recruit talent for organizations, and I guess networking is a huge part of it. But now, as we know, all the networking has also gone virtual. I was actually listening to a couple of your episodes. They were quite interesting point of view shared by your guests and yourself as well. How we now have to sort of do this networking virtually, which is obviously is different from face-to-face, different experiences. But at the moment, that's where it's heading. That's what's happening. What changes have you seen, positives or negatives, when it comes to talent recruitment since?
Yeah, I mean, the last year has been insane. And I think that I don't want to use the word unprecedented because I think it's overused. It's a buzzword, but everyone's had to pivot. That's another buzzword that we have to use. But it's really true, because we've had to take in-person interviews, in-person process, in-person employee experience, onboarding, that whole, major component of somebody's early days within a company, and take it completely remote. So there's some companies that have been doing it well for a long time pre-pandemic, and they had the process down. Other companies, they didn't even fathom this was ever going to be a possibility or something they've had to do. And they literally had to stop on a dime and change everything about their process. Some embraced it, some did it well. And I think there's a couple of pieces here that have made it positive and negative. I think that the companies that embrace it and really understand that people are the lifeblood of their company, their current employees, any new employees coming in, and they really put the time, energy, effort, and resources into ensuring a smooth process. And they also listened and they learned and they adapted. And those are the ones that are going to succeed. But Amber, the ones that didn't, the ones that really kind of held on to this concept of everyone needs to be in the office all the time, they're the ones that are struggling, and they're the ones that are failing, and they're the ones that are not going to come out of this strong. And what we're seeing right now, and I call it the great talent migration. And we're seeing this happen now where there are a lot of folks who they're been working remotely, and we're opening back up around the world, some sooner than later. And some companies are saying, hey, we want you back into the office full time. Other companies are saying, hey, it's up to you. And then other companies are somewhere in the middle. But how a company acts, reacts, responds during the hard times is going to define their future. Simple as that.
It's simple as that. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's all part of innovation, isn't it? If we don't innovate, we die. And there's a lot of examples around us, and it's not just, it affects every part of the business, from recruitment to keeping the right talent, to growing, to innovating product, everything. It comes down to innovation and sort of 100%. Staying ahead of what's happening. I mean, look at Kodak, or what was that? Blockbuster, right? I can't believe, how they went down.
I used to love Blockbuster. I mean, that was kind of part of it. It's funny too. It was funny. I was talking to my wife about the early days when we started dating. We were living on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and there was literally a Blockbuster video at the bottom of our building, this big high-rise apartment building. And it was part of our routine on a Friday night to go downstairs, and the experience of picking out a movie, but they did not innovate. And it's so funny too. I love hearing the stories of whether it be Netflix or Instagram or Google. I think the story was that Google turned down a like $1 billion offer from Yahoo, right? Like something crazy like that.
Yes.
Like, right? Like, and just imagine how things would have shifted there. But I'm a big believer that everything happens for a reason. Personally, professionally.
Yeah. I mean, in this current pandemic, we can see some companies dropped the ball as well. I would say Skype dropped the ball.
I mean, they had a tremendous opportunity to capitalize, and they did not.
Yeah. So I mean, it's about, we have to, especially as founders, we have to stay vigilant about what's happening and be ready and adaptable for that change, because stubbornness is not going to get us anywhere.
No, you have to be open to change. I mean, I did it with my business, and it's funny too, Amber. I think about it a lot. Like, putting aside in a respectful way all the devastation, heartbreak, illness, death, disruption. I'm thankful for the pandemic, because if it wasn't for the pandemic, I would have been continuing with my business as usual. But the pandemic caused me and so many others to stop, to pause, to evaluate what I'm doing. And I spent the time, energy, and effort to reinvest into my business, to build myself up professionally. I invested into executive coaching to learn and fill gaps of things that I wasn't great at or didn't know how to do. With my business expanding, I was never taught how to scale a business. I was never taught some of the foundational elements of business development. My business development is still primarily driven on relationships, and I do great at that. But there's other pieces that you need there too, foundationally. I needed to learn how to scale. So I invested. I worked with an executive business coach who taught me those pieces. I invested into an office space. I invested into the show with content and distribution. And I wouldn't have done that without the pandemic.
Yeah. It's so wonderful to hear the positives, because everybody can talk about, I wish I had this, I wish this didn't happen, but we also have to look at, okay, what can we now do instead of that? And it's wonderful to hear, because, it's everybody learns from each other's experiences.
100%.
And since we're talking about this, I wanted to find out, you talked about, obviously you recruit talent, and in talent, because I was having this conversation with David Breyer on LinkedIn the other day about how in schools we are taught the academic subjects, but really are not taught subjects which really matter in life. So I was thinking about from when you recruiting talent point of view, like when you're looking for talent, what are the things you're looking for? Is it just the skills, or are there specific knowledge in certain subject, or the other skills like communication, sales, negotiation
100%.
skills matter as well?
I mean, there's the hard skills and the soft skills. By the time you're having a conversation with me on the phone, we're already assuming the fact that you're qualified on paper for the job.
Okay.
From a skills perspective, I could tell that on your resume. I could tell that on your LinkedIn profile, right? If I'm recruiting for a doctor, I'm not looking at plumbers, no offense to plumber, right? Like, the skill set that you're looking for that job. The number one thing, underrated skill that I hear from my clients is the concept of being inquisitive, people being naturally curious. When someone is naturally curious, that leads them to being a problem solver by asking the right questions. By saying, hey, why isn't this working? Can we do this better? Can we try something different? And it starts with the job interview. At the end of every interview, a candidate is given an opportunity to ask questions. That is gold. That is a whiteboard. That is an opportunity that's carte blanche into framing up two things. One, making sure that you're set up for success if this is the right role for you, but really putting yourself in a great position by asking great questions. Asking about the role, what success looks like in this role, real strong questions about the role, the people, the culture. That's your opportunity to shine.
And do you also recruit graduates for organization, or is it you're looking at a different level? You hire?
I rarely recruit entry level at this point in my career. But when I do it occasionally, I actually enjoy it. I love keeping in touch and in tune with the young. I sound so freaking old now, Amber, but in tune with the younger generation, because I want to see what's happening, what they're feeling, and I think that helps me as a recruiter, helps me as a host on a show that focuses on talent and recruiting to really still be in touch. But I rarely recruit entry level at this point.
Okay. I was listening to one of your podcast episodes. I remember you mentioning that how, because I actually didn't think about it, but this is happening, that previously the way recruiters hired, or the jobs were offered depend on where you were geographically situated. So your salary depends on where you are located, right? New Yorkers get paid more for, I don't know,
somebody. It's a cost of living. It's a cost of living.
Cost of living, right? But that's changing with the digital working. So how does this affect, and what, who's got the upper hand? Can we balance this situation? Like,
it's a great question. It's a great question, because it's a double-edged sword for companies, because I have a lot of companies and clients that say, hey, listen, I want to recruit in my geographic area right now because I know that eventually it's going to open and we are an on-site office. They're in the creative space. There's a lot of collaboration there. Yes, they're going to figure out what that looks like from a hybrid scenario to make sure that everyone feels comfortable there. I have other clients where they're in the digital space and it doesn't matter where people live. It's completely agnostic. They could do the job here. They could do the job anywhere, as long as they're available to connect within a time zone. We call it kind of following the sun philosophy. Like, you could be in California and the company could be in New York, and you're just kind of adjusting your time zone. Maybe you get up a little earlier, you stay up a little bit later, so you're available for collaboration, for calls. When it comes down to compensation, this is where it gets a little bit tricky. There's some schools of thought that say, hey, listen, it doesn't matter if I live in the middle of the country where cost of living is low versus New York. Most of the people that say that are people that live in the middle of the country. But if I live in New York, hey, listen, if I'm living in New York, their cost of living's higher. It's just a fact. It's just a straight up fact. So I'm kind of torn on this one, but what it has done, there are companies that adjust and say, hey, listen, this pandemic has given us the foresight, and not just the foresight, but also the openness to say, hey, listen, we're open to people work. We've seen it. We could work remotely. We could collaborate remotely. So why not open up the talent pool? And to our advantage, if we could find amazing talent somewhere outside of our geographic area at a lower cost. And when I say this, is it doesn't mean we're underpaying that person by any means whatsoever, because they're still getting a very fair salary for where they live. So there's two sides to that. There's two different schools of thought. Some people will say, hey, listen, why the hell does it matter where I live? You should pay me the same as if I was in New York, California, San Fran, Miami. It doesn't matter. So I don't really take a side on this. I like to take it on a case-specific basis based on that client, what the job is and what type of company it is.
But do you not think that people who live in expensive cities where the cost of living is higher, they are going to lose out? Because if companies can find talent elsewhere and they know cost of living is cheaper, they don't have to compensate them as much.
It's true. It's happening. It's happening. And I call it the great talent migration, and it's working in many
Yeah.
different ways. There are people that are going to move jobs because their current employer is opening back up their office and they don't want to do that anymore. Or in some cases, let's call the other side of the coin, there are companies that are not opening back up and they're doing fully remote. Amber, there's a lot of people, and I don't think we talk about this enough, that love being in an office.
Yes.
They love going to work. They love collaborating. Maybe they don't have a great setup at home. Maybe they're surrounded. Maybe they don't have little things like internet to the extreme of they don't want to be surrounded by their kids all day.
Exactly.
That they have a great environment to work. And there's another piece that people aren't talking about. It's new employees who are hurting and younger workers out there.
Yes.
Younger workers at a complete disadvantage right now because they're not getting that one-on-one in-person mentorship. Remotely, when a new employee comes on board, unless their manager is so dedicated, they're distracted. They're distracted at home. They're distracted by their own performance, making sure they're up to speed. Think about all those people that are homeschooling kids right now and they're trying to balance their workload, their individual contributor performance workload. And on top of that, they have to train new employees.
Yes, it's bloody hard.
It's bloody hard. And I think that this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the effect on new employees. Now, on the flip side of that, I've seen so many companies that have done amazing hiring in the last year, great job onboarding and really being dedicated. It's really the onus is on the company to put the effort and the priority on the hiring and the onboarding and the training.
Yeah.
Remotely.
Yeah, I totally get that. In your experience, like, are you seeing that the organizations are getting on top of it? Because that's a huge change. You know, that's a huge change.
Yeah, some do it well and some have not. It really comes down to management and leadership, putting it as a priority and putting their people first. And here's the other piece too. It's really hard for management because when we think about attrition, with migration, with people leaving, when someone leaves a company, when someone quits, when someone gets hired, when someone gets fired, the rest of the team has to pick up that slack.
Yes.
So if a company's not investing into the hiring process, you're only hurting the retention of your current employees and their happiness and satisfaction, which affects culture, values, everything. It's a downward spiral. It's very quick.
Yeah. But I wonder how organizations can cope with this situation, because, you know, like you said, some employees prefer to come to work because of distractions at home or whatever. There's gazillions of reasons not to be at home. And then there's some who prefer because they had to travel 2 hours to get to work. And now they think, okay, I'd rather just save on those 2 hours each way. So, I mean, then now you're dependent on your organization to provide that support. And that organization also has to rely on government regulations to what's permissible, what's not. So there
a lot of factors.
Like a chicken and egg situation.
100%.
You know, how much can you comply with? Is it worth it? To me, I think it comes down to this. You know, are organizations thinking about, is it worth making arrangements for this so that we get to keep this talent? Or shall we just not bother about the talent? We can always hire somebody else, and we're going to do what we want to do.
Oh, I hate that latter approach. I mean, it really comes down to your people. And I think companies that truly embrace people first, always people first, the people are your product, your people are your livelihood. I mean, your lifeblood, it's all about that. Because that's a difference, right? I mean, if you have two manufacturing companies that are making the same product, you have two manufacturing companies making Post-its, and you're an employee in the Post-it business, which one do you want to work for? Someone that puts their people first and cares. I mean, that's what it comes down to, always. And people that get it. And, you know, we are not in the 1940s. We're not in the Industrial Revolution. 9 to 5 is going out the window. I mean, these are constraints built on such ancient thoughts and mindsets. I mean, it's fascinating to watch this migration. And I think the pandemic was just what we needed. In many ways. In many ways, Amber.
For organizations to revamp. I truly do believe that 100%. It has forced organizations to think differently, to do more for their people. They weren't on the program yet, but pandemic has forced. It
was a slap in the face that a lot of them needed. Let's call it what it is. It was a wake up call, and a lot of companies have gone completely downhill. And you know what? Maybe it was a kick in the ass that they needed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, which brings us to the point that organizations now need to be more visible with what they stand for and what can they do for their workforce. What do you think?
It is the moment for companies to step up. This is the time to shine. I said it before, how a company reacts during the hardest times will define their future.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I guess, do you think that it's only who can benefit, like as people who are looking for jobs or who are looking to switch jobs, can they really benefit from this situation, or can they work it to their advantage, or it's something that it depends. There's more people out there out of jobs, so really they don't really have an advantage. Like,
yeah, let's break this down a little bit. And it's not so much a myth. I think it's just looking into the numbers. Amber, we've seen record unemployment globally, and if we're talking about unemployment here in the U.S., I think it's important to break down where those unemployment numbers are coming from, which sectors and which industries. Let's break that down for a moment. Travel, hospitality, tourism, sports, restaurant, food and bev, and all the ancillary industries and services that support those industries. That's where we're seeing the unemployment. Where we're not seeing unemployment, where we're seeing the exact opposite, is the industry that I work in. Digital marketing, direct-to-consumer marketing, subscription-based marketing, performance marketing, and media. It's never been hotter. If you think about it, during the pandemic, everything shifted to online. Anything that was an online service, online companies, direct-to-consumer marketing has exploded. So candidates are now in control. Candidates have the choice, passive candidates, to say, I'm not happy here. I'm going to go to another job and I'm going to demand more money. I have so many roles open that are really hard to fill. Wow. And people say, Adam, isn't there record unemployment? I go, not in my industry. And some clients understand this, and some clients have a really hard time wrapping their head around this, Amber. They think that there's tons of people out there that are just chomping at the bit to work for their company. That's not the case.
I totally agree with that. It's an opportunity if you know where to look and what to do. Certainly just sticking with the old ways, it's not going to work out. Or, that if you end up losing your job at some point, it may be very hard to then get back into it because, other people were already on board with what's happening, and they've sort of, taken your place in a sense. But yes, I think for certain sectors, it's the pandemic has been, quite gracious in a way to bring a lot of business, because there's been majority of the businesses. Well, I wouldn't say majority, but at least the businesses, online businesses were already there. But now the pandemic has forced the offline businesses, who were 50% of them was still not on digital, to pivot to digital, which means that all those media related services are now in demand to help other businesses and individuals be more visible and spread their message.
It's a big shift in how we do everything. Digital presence is everything, and we see it on LinkedIn. The rise of the personal brand, of the personal brand, and that's the one that gets me, because to me, personal brand is your reputation. It's what people are saying behind your back. It's what impression you're leaving folks. But it's really spawned a cottage industry on LinkedIn of personal branding coaches and career coaches and mindset coaches, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are out of work or are looking for a side hustle, and they see a couple of people succeeding at it, optics wise. You're not looking at their bank account. You're not looking at their ledger to see if they really are making money, but it looks easy. It looks like something they could do. And you're seeing a lot of unqualified people trying to come across as qualified and experts in things they have no business talking about. It's a real travesty, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen a lot of these as well. It seemed like that every person is now a personal branding coach. It seems like literally everybody I'm connected to.
and the really funny part too is I see a lot of these people talking about it, and then I go to their pages and I'm like, where are the results? And I always urge people, like whether it comes to coaching, mentorship, hiring somebody, just make sure that the person that you're hiring has the qualifications, they have the experience, and you want somebody who has achieved a level of success that you're aspiring to, or has achieved a point of being in a certain position that you're trying to do. Simple as that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's not to say I have to be careful here that somebody who's just starting in coaching doesn't know what the hell they're talking about. Because maybe they bring a wealth of experience, a wealth of knowledge and insights and training that you just don't see on paper.
Yeah.
I mean, the same thing with hiring. I mean, we talk about this all the time, character over skill. And, you know, you look at a job description and it says 2 to 3 years, you know, say it says 10 years experience, but somebody has been doing it for 5 years, but they're just awesome at it. Why should you reject them just based on that and hear them out? Like, it's a similar concept, but I always come down to just telling people to do your due diligence.
Yeah.
Do your due diligence.
Yeah. And of course, there are different levels of, you don't always have to hire at the top level. There are different levels you can hire at, be it coaches you're hiring or be it employees for your company.
Right.
But even for people starting off, you know, I just say that all you have to start off is helping one person, right? If you have helped one person and you can highlight that, right? That's a start.
It is a start, and everyone needs a start. I needed to make my first hire in recruiting. People need their first hiring and coaching. Everyone needs that start.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not like all doom and gloom if you don't have you know, a gazillion case studies or.
No, you got to start somewhere. I mean, when I went out on my own business, I needed my first client to believe in me, and I still I hold that client in the highest regard because they believed in me and they took a chance on me.
Yeah.
And so I do have an empathetic and sympathetic side to that.
Yeah.
But not when people are trying to take advantage of others. So there's a balance.
Yes, there's a balance. Yeah. And I think when your name starts to come up in conversations, that's building a brand. That's when, you know, when somebody says, you know, if somebody asks for, do you know somebody who can help me launch my podcast and take it to number one, I don't know, on Apple, on iTunes or whatever. And then somebody gives a name. Now your name is coming up in conversations. Right. That's when you know you have built a brand.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I'm starting to see a little of that myself, and it's hard for me to. I mean, I had a post this morning. I had this wonderful young lady in India who reached out to me about a month ago, and she's like, "Adam, I love your show. You've inspired me to create my own show. I'd love to have you as a guest on my show." I'm like. It was hard for me. And I'm really trying not to sound like a jerk when I say this. It was hard for me to hear somebody say that I inspired them, especially like all the way around the world. Yeah. But that's the power of podcasting. That's the power of LinkedIn. That's the power of social media, that it breaks down walls. Yes. That you could communicate with somebody like I'm communicating with you thousands of miles away instantly. Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Right. That's a bright side of this. And I also think that the pandemic has brought everyone online and made our world a lot smaller place and more connected. Like you talk about the silver linings of the pandemic. You talk about, you know, the rise of Clubhouse, reconnecting people audio wise, like reconnecting conversations. Yes. The rise of podcasts. I think more podcasts have launched in the last year than, you know, in the last 5 years.
Yes.
Because people are home and they want to communicate.
Yeah.
And they're trying new things and experimenting. And I always urge people when it comes to podcasting, Amber, if you have an itch, scratch it. If you want to try something, try it. The barrier to entry to start a podcast is so low. When I started with my podcast, it was literally on Anchor for $8 a month. My Blue Yeti mic I have there, the camera that's on the top of my MacBook right here, and that's it. No editing, nothing fancy, no fancy studios, no Shure SM7B mics here, none of that.
Yeah.
But I built it up and I enjoyed it. And I always tell people, once you stop enjoying it and you don't have the time to dedicate to the process, because it's a lot of work podcasting.
Yeah.
I make it look easy here, but they don't see what's on the other side. If you lose the passion and it becomes not fun for you, stop immediately.
Yeah.
Because it'll come through in your voice, it'll come through in the product of your show, and it'll come through the guests, and ultimately the audience will hear it as well, and they will not enjoy your show, and there's no point.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bad product. Poor product.
It's and you're so spot on about that. If you have an itch, you know, then scratch it immediately. And I think for me, I started doing this lives September or October last year. I did my first ever.
And why? Why'd you do it for the first time?
And for me, it was that same thing, that itch that I was like, you know what, I want to do this. I want to connect with people. I want to share their stories and learn from them. But for me, the barrier was the video, because I hated being a video. I would not shoot videos.
Me too. I mean, I had a problem with video too. I mean, I really did. It took me a while to feel comfortable, and there's times that I don't.
Yeah.
You know, there are times that I don't. I mean, I'll be a quick little story.
Yeah.
Monday, I recorded one of my I would say it's going to be my biggest interview to date with somebody that everybody knows. Been working on the show for a long time. I'm not ready to announce who that is yet. It's going to be a surprise. And there was no way in hell that I would be able to reschedule this show on my own. And Sunday we're out in the garden, and the stupidest mistake. I have a giant 25-pound hanging plant pole that I'm holding, and I lean it down. I turn my back for a second when I should have put it on the floor, and the thing comes and it whacks me across the nose here. I have a big gash in my nose here, and it almost hit me in the eye, and I thought I broke my nose. And I was like, holy crap. Like, I was like, I'm bleeding everywhere. I was like, I thought my nose was broken. And I'm like, all I was thinking about was not myself. I was thinking about that I would have to cancel the show the next day with this guest.
Yes.
But luckily, it all worked out. And I'm like, I can't look on camera with two black guys and everything. But ultimately, it's the audio, right? The podcast is the audio, and that's the majority of what people are going to listen to. And the show must go on, Amber.
And the show must go on. Yeah, I like that attitude. That, you know, figure out a way. You know, and it's. I would have
put on. Honestly, I thought about it. If I had two black guys, I would have put on sunglasses and done the show, and it would have been a funny story. It would have been a funny story.
Yeah. Or, you know, we're all wearing masks these days. You could have even covered it all, you know, have the mask on, sunglasses on, and you're
something. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it came out great. I'm excited for this show. It's a special one. I think it's going to resonate with everybody.
When is it coming out?
I don't know. I just got it back from just sent it to the editor yesterday. I recorded it Monday, sent it to the editor yesterday, and within the next 2 weeks, you'll see it. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Everyone, the whole world will know. Yeah.
Can't wait. And those of you who want to check out Adam's podcast, it is ThePOZCast.com.
There it is. You got it.
And you could always, if you're interested in recruitment and talent, you can always check him out on his website, 𝒊𝒏𝒕𝒂𝒕'𝒔.
My two middle children right there.
You do.
I call NHP Talent Group, which is the umbrella for everything. That's my middle child. It was born in between my two kids. The company is named after my daughter. These are her initials, Nina Harrison Posner. And my son's gonna, he's almost 3. He's gonna get to a point, I'd say maybe by 5, where he's gonna be like, Daddy, why is the company named after Nina and not me? And I'm gonna have to figure something out, Amber. I'm gonna have to start a new company or come up with the Oliver Group or some kind of subsidiary just to make him happy.
Yeah. Keep them all happy. You don't want to come out as, favoriting one.
No. I mean, I literally wear my daughter's initials on my hat. He'll realize soon enough.
So, all right. I wanted to talk to you more about, since you touched upon it, the power of podcasting. And so what has it done for you, and what can you share with others that it can do for others?
It's opened up everything. But there's a couple things. There's the business side and the personal side. It has given me I should say this. It has increased my confidence, my ability to communicate. I've always been a good communicator, but it keeps me quick. The ability to have conversations like this, to keep it real, to be in touch, to be in tune. And from a business side, it's just been an incredible business development tool. I've been able to book guests on my show that I want to do business with and open up relationships and build business with them and partnerships. It's given me a platform to establish myself as a thought leader in the industry, but more importantly, Amber, to showcase real thought leaders in the industry. And I just benefit as a halo effect of having this stage here to shine the light on them. And it just opened me up to audiences, to worlds, across the world, countries across the world, to people, and build my brand and have a platform and a stage to talk about things.
So let's talk about the actual tactics. Like, how long did it take you to get that recognition? Like, how many episodes did you have to do it regularly? Like, what's gone behind this?
So it's consistency. Like anything else in life, it's consistency and muscle memory. And I always tell people, if you're going to do a show, you have to have consistency, because as the audience grows, they're going to want to hear more. In theory, if it's a good show, they're going to want to hear more. So if you're putting out only one show a month, no one's going to listen to it. They're not going to wait around for it. So I always tell people the cadence is really weekly. You want to have a show at least weekly. And that takes a lot of work to do that. And you realize that early on. So a big tip I give any new podcaster is have at least 8 to 10 shows done, or as we like to say in the business, in the can. Have those shows done, produced, and ready to go. And when you launch your show, a piece of advice that I received, which I didn't take till later on, was put out 5 shows right away. Because if people like your first show, they want more to listen to right away. Get them hooked in. And then have more to go. Always be at least 5 weeks ahead. You need that buffer zone. say something comes up in business or life where you can't do it. You don't want to be recording show to show, week to week. I record in batches. There's some weeks I'll record 3 shows, 4 shows. I won't record for 2 weeks, but I'll have all those shows ready to go. I'll have time to produce them, and I batch all my production together. I'm not sending off one show at a time.
Right.
Very rarely, unless I have a gap in scheduling, but very rarely. It's always a batch of shows because that also makes me more efficient.
Yeah.
I'm sending out a batch of shows to the editor, a batch of shows to the creative team.
Yeah.
And I'm able to block and tackle my own schedule, so I'm not spending time here and there all over the place.
Yeah.
The other greatest piece of advice I got regarding podcasting was from one of my recruiting mentors, a great guy by the name of Jordan Paris. Interestingly, Jordan is probably 10, 15 years younger than me. Yeah. And I think it's incredible to just be okay with that. Like, why shouldn't I learn from somebody who's 15 years younger than me, who's awesome at what they're doing? But Jordan said to me, Amber, he said, make it to 50 shows. Push yourself to 50. Right. And now I'm approaching 160. So like, made it to 50, make it to 100, make it to 150. Set attainable goals for yourself.
Yeah.
And tackle them.
And would you say like once a week is enough? Like if you were to say, start off with 5, like you say, and then schedule once a week, that's a good schedule.
I think once a week, and you want people to know when your show's coming out. My shows come out Friday morning. Yeah. People like to listen over the weekend. I adjusted that pre-pandemic. I was going out on Mondays or Tuesdays because people were commuting and they had it for the week. So I shifted that because you have to follow the patterns and trends of when people are listening. Yeah. So be a student of your analytics too. Retention rates. Right. Keep an eye, because a lot of people ask me, Amber, how long should my show be? I've seen people crush it with 2-minute shows. They're putting out a 2-minute show every single day, which is real quick, highlights, tips, news, facts, done. They kill it. Millions of downloads. Yeah. Some people say, Adam, your shows are long. Some of your shows are almost an hour. Some of your shows are half an hour. How do you find that cadence? There's 2 things there. One, it's a long format show. So if I have an interesting guest and we're continuing to have a conversation, I won't cut it short. I'd rather do 2 parts than cut it short. And you also have to look at the data. I am able to tell, I use Simplecast, I'm able to tell the average percentage of how long people listen to the episode. And I want to see that number at least 75%. That people are listening to the end. Okay. People get cut off, they're in a car, they don't have enough time. There's always reasons for that. But 75% is a great number, meaning 75% of the people listen to the end of the show.
Great number, yeah.
And if you see those numbers start to dip and you see your average show is too long, bring it back down.
Okay.
Right. And there's some shows that I do that are half an hour. There's some shows. It just depends.
Yeah. Depends on the conversation. Okay. And so if somebody's launching, because we're about to launch a podcast as well, and there's like gazillion platforms that you can launch with. What has your experience been with these platforms?
Yeah, I started on Anchor, and for me, it's a great platform for people to start on. But back then, I actually would advise against it right now, because if you look in the terms and conditions, Anchor actually owns your content. Technically, they own your RSS feed, so I don't recommend Anchor at all. Back then, I did. I migrated to Simplecast. I like Simplecast. It's perfectly good. Some people like it. Some people don't. Podbean, Lisbon is great too. So it's either Simplecast, Podbean, or Lisbon are the 3 platforms I recommend. Good analytics, fair cost. And just to be clear, everyone, these are hosting platforms. These are the platforms where you upload your show and then it gets distributed out to all those platforms you think about. Here's another podcasting myth that I want to break, which was taught to me by another one of my podcasting mentors, 𝒕'𝒔, hosted the Young and Profiting Show. Hala's awesome. People get hung up on Apple. Apple iTunes is not the end all be all of podcasting. There's in fact a lot of people that hate Apple. They don't like the interface. They're not into Apple, anything Apple, and they listen elsewhere. Yeah. These sub platforms, and we're talking Spotify, SoundCloud. The big one for me lately has been a platform called Castbox. It's actually the 3rd or 4th largest platform that people never heard about.
It as well. Yeah.
I mean, I've gained 22,000 subscribers on that in the last 6 months.
Oh, wow.
And it's incredible. 100,000 plus downloads on that. I mean, it's really to think about the other platforms globally. Not everyone has an iPhone in their hand.
Yeah. I
love that. Think about the rest of the world. Think about like other people aside from your own small, don't always think about how you consume. Think about how other people consume. And that'll change your dynamic. Once you get out of the Apple mindset, everything's going to change.
Yeah. And don't forget the smaller distribution channels.
Oh, there's such gold. There's riches in the niches, as I like to say, Amber. There's riches in the niches. There's gold in them mountains. You got to dig it out.
I hope that if nothing else, that people get this takeaway, they listen to this part of the show and get that it's not just about iTunes. There is other ways to distribute your
and think about your own page too. I mean, I drive a lot of traffic to ThePOZCast.com, which has a built-in native player. I mean, I get a lot from that too, and I drive SEO there, and it's been a big home for me. But you don't have to have a web page. I did not invest into that web page till I crossed that 50, 60 episode mark. And I knew I was going to stick with it because it was a time and financial commitment to building out the web page. I have a web guy that I use that maintains it weekly. I have to pay him the web hosting fees. There's a lot of costs people don't think about.
Yeah.
There's a team. I mean, I have a 6-person team for my podcast.
Yeah. A lot of work goes into it.
Creative, audio, producing, content. There's a lot of pieces to it, and managing them all.
Yeah. But I mean, saying that, it's just a reminder to let people know that it, just like anything else, business, everything, it takes effort and lots of work. We don't want to be putting people off from doing this, but yes, if you are thinking about doing podcasts, know that you got to put the effort in, or it's not going to work. Basically.
Like anything else in life, you have to put the effort in.
Like anything else in life. Alrighty, a quick note that this show is sponsored by Amplifyology, previously known as Repurposed In, helping you become favored brand and not just the cheapest option in your market, through arming you with tools to amplify your voice on multi-channels using hype-generating, scroll-freezing, and notably surprising social content that makes trusting your brand like stealing candy from a baby. Now, folks, it is that time of the interview for us, and you may be thinking, what is it, gossip time, or share the fun pickup lines time, or tell an embarrassing joke time? Unfortunately, we are not that type of a show. Well, not yet anyway.
No, you got to get there.
Exactly. But what it is time for is the 48-hour challenge time. So, Adam, from your experience, what is that one thing that our viewers and listeners can implement in the next 48 hours that helps them amplify their voice?
Let's talk about LinkedIn. Let's talk about the job search. Let's talk about positioning yourself as a thought leader in the industry. Here's a really, really easy tip to do. Go onto LinkedIn. I have my LinkedIn open right now. I'm looking at it. On the right-hand side, there's a thing that says LinkedIn News. Find an article that's relevant to you. Find an article that's relevant to your industry. Take that article, repost it, but don't just hit share, repost. Yeah. Use it as an opportunity to add your point of view, what you think about it, right, wrong. What are the implications? What are the actionable takeaways there? Post it, position yourself as a thought leader, give your point of view, make yourself heard, and position yourself as a thought leader within your industry.
I love that tip. And
easy peasy. It's right there. It's right. People struggle with content. It's right there. It's right to the right of your screen. It's right there. Yeah. I have a pet peeve when people just reshare things and they literally copy the headline of the first 2 sentences. I'm like, I could do that myself. I don't need you to do that. And you're devaluing. You're not adding any value. Always be adding everything in life. Everything in life, always add value. How could I add value? How could I make something better? How could I improve upon something? How could I give somebody else that aha moment?
Yeah. I think it's all about that, giving somebody else an aha moment. And this is a great tip, by the way. I need to do more of that myself. But this is I guess what you've shared is an easy way. If you're thinking about, I don't know what to share, I don't know what to talk about. Well, here you go. Adam's just shared a great tip about the newsfeed section on your LinkedIn.
So many easy ones. It's low hanging fruit, Amber.
Low hanging fruit. Absolutely. And is this, I mean, in your, for yourself, like how long have you been active on LinkedIn for?
I've been on LinkedIn since 2006. I've been in social media for a long time and always been a fan of emerging platforms. So, I got involved in LinkedIn late 2005, 2006, but really active from a creator standpoint. I've been in recruiting for about 6.5 years. So, using it as a platform to recruit, but from a content creation standpoint, it's been about, 3.5 years or so.
And what have you seen? What's happened, or what's changed for you in the past 3.5 years?
Just how many people are utilizing the platform and understanding that it's not just a resume job place, but really content, learning, and connecting.
Yeah. And that's why people, if you if you've got any doubts about where you want to be amplifying your voice, or what you need to be doing for your business, get on this platform
100%.
And check out Adam's podcast as well. Learn from it if you're starting into podcasting. It's I'm learning from him every day.
I'm learning too. I mean, I talk about it all the time. The podcast is my masterclass. It's my MBA. I mean, I have an opportunity to learn from. I get to interview people that I want to talk to. Yes. That's the way I look at it, Amber. I have an opportunity and a platform to interview people that I want to have a conversation with.
Yeah.
And I reach out to them. I got Tucker Max, for example. Tucker Max, the show's out. I haven't really published a lot of publicity around it. Episode 147 is out. If you don't know Tucker Max, he was a really big author back in early 2000s, wrote a bunch of these fratire type books. Big fan of him. He's now the co-founder of Scribe Media, which is the #1 self-publishing platform. Yeah. And he's somebody I've always wanted to talk to and have on the show. I got denied the first time about 8 months ago, and they said, try back again in 6 months.
All right.
And I set a reminder. I set an auto scheduler right then and there on my Gmail. Yeah. The email went out. I forgot the email was even going out, and I got a response back, and they said, yes, he'd love to be on your show. And we did it. Never underestimate the power of follow-up.
Love that. And
it's a great episode. It's I look back on that. I listened to it again. I mean, it came out like a week ago, but I listened to it again. And I'm like, yes, I had an opportunity to interview, not a hero by any means, but somebody that I admired from, who was a great writer.
Yeah.
We shared a great story, and it was a fantastic, open, honest, and fun conversation. And that's what I love about doing the show, having the opportunity to interview the folks like that.
Yeah, I think it's a great platform to have real conversations and build relationships with people that you not only want to be in business with, but maybe look up to for various reasons. Well, Adam, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a wonderful chat. I mean, I could talk to you for hours about so many things, but I have to be mindful of your time.
Thank you.
Thank you once again, for sharing your dynamite self with me. And toodaloo for now.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Amber. I appreciate you.
No worries. Bye-bye for now.